Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of the Getting Real podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harms, founder and broker owner of the Time Away Realty Group. And I have the pleasure of being joined today by a wealth of knowledge who is going to change the way we think about real estate. Hopefully, I'm not setting you up too much there, Peggy. But please welcome Peggy Beauregard from the Nest Egg Builder to the show. How are you today, Peggy?
I am super terrific and so excited to be here. I can't tell you, Matthew, how much fun it has been getting to know you and what a great sense of humor you have. And what I love about you the most is that open mind you have. That probably comes from all the penmanship and writing that you do. Because how do you create if you don't have an open mind of taking all this stuff in and then putting it out in a different way? So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so
thrilled. It is my
thrilled.
pleasure. I mean, I've enjoyed thoroughly our offline conversations, and it can be easy for anyone in any industry to think you know it all if you've done it for long enough. But when you have that open mind, sometimes you're pleasantly surprised that what you thought you knew is only the tip of the iceberg.
It's so true. I've been in this business for about 40 years as an investor, and I could tell you that we constantly see new things all the time. Something new happens. You're dealing with people. People are different. Every person has a different attitude. So you got to have an open mind. I learn something all the time.
I love that you just said that. That's one of the topics I really tried to drive home in my new book. Real estate it's not just a property business. It's not a thing business. It's a people business.
That's right. It truly is. I'm not in the real estate, what we call retail single family agents. They pretty much, that's all they think. They don't think beyond what the real estate world really looks like. I don't know if you know this, but 80% of real estate is done off market. It never gets on market. We're talking like back when Sony bought, I can't remember, Columbia Studios. That was not an on-market deal. That was totally off-market. Like things like that. All the big companies, because they bought the company and then they bought the real estate with it, right? So
I never even thought about that. That's a pretty staggering number. I mean, if you think about any real estate agents who are listening, or even investors who are watching Zillow, think about all of the properties that are listed. And now take into account that's only 20% of what's actually going on in the market.
That's right. And that's what sets the market. And usually the people that buy what we call off market, they're putting the good deals together, and that's how you make your profit going in. Everyone looks at the MLS, or they talk to their agent, the commercial agent, and the agent goes out and looks. So now the agent's going to get that commission, and that commission can take away some of the profit, or they're really a lot of, I don't hate to say this, but a lot of agents are only concerned about their commission, not about their fiduciary responsibility to their client. Super, super, super important.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an agent misprice something just because they're trying to work in their higher commission, justify the benefit of working with them.
I think one day we'll see a flat fee. I mean, if you really looked at what it costs an agent, which is costly because it is costly, if they just came up with a flat fee, it wouldn't matter whether it was $1 million property or $300,000 or a $5 million property. It would be a flat fee. The flat fee would be different depending. I mean, if you're going to be into a $100 million property, it's going to cost you more as an agent. You have a lot of footwork to do, a lot of time put in, so you need to get paid for that. But rather than on a percentage, I think that'll come one day.
It's funny you bring that up, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole entirely, not for more than a minute or two. But one of my ghostwriting clients is a very well-known mortgage consultant, and I was a little shocked. Once again, something I didn't know, what I thought being in the industry I would. But there's been a massive class action lawsuit in the Supreme Court against the MLS and the National Association of Realtors to remove buyers agents commissions from transactions. They're saying that, and I don't agree with the whole argument. In fact, I'm writing a piece on this as we speak. because at least from my experience, most buyers agents do more work than the listing agents. But the feeling is the listing agent has the inventory, right? They went out and they got the deal. Why should the seller have to pay both agents commission? If the buyer's agent is entitled to a commission, they should be getting it from their client, which I don't agree with. I think that the real estate market in general can't absorb that kind of cost, because that puts it on the buyers who, I mean, they're lucky to come up with closing costs and earnest money and points and all that good stuff. And it really takes away the buyer's advocate, because if they're going straight to the selling agent now, that seller's agent technically has a fiduciary responsibility, but do they really?
No, not if it's dual, but we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And I will tell you, in the exchange world, and by the way, when an agent takes a listing from a seller, part of that commission does go to the buyer. But the buyer's agents, they'll work with somebody. If they don't have a signed contract with a buyer, that buyer goes work with 3 or 4 people, and you've spent all that time and then you didn't get paid. But in the exchange world, which I was in, they call it yicky yickum. You keep yours, I keep mine. And that means your client pays for you. But in the exchange world, it's very different. We have maybe 8 clients. That's all we're going to have for our lifetime. And our job as their representative, fiduciary responsibility, is to build their portfolio, which probably is why I started the business I've started, because if what I see as building the nest egg, adding more eggs, is really about you as the individual putting more real estate that cash flows or has add value or something that will build your financial wealth, give you more choices. So that's why we went into the capital raising part and talking to the limited partner, talking to people that have retirement accounts, and they want that money working to build over time. So when they get ready to retire, or if they're ready to take a vacation, they're not using their principal, they're using their interest, shall we say.
Yeah, I would love for you to dive a little more into that background on the exchange world and what you're doing, just because it's really fascinating when you think about all of the different options that are out there to make money in real estate. I was joking with you offline before we started that a lot of people are amateurs think there's only one or two or three ways to make money in real estate, right? You either flip a house, you become a landlord, or you do the mystical wholesaling that every guru on Facebook wants to sell you their $1,000 course to teach you how to do it.
Yeah, they do. Well, I was never a flipper, but I was a theater major where I learned how to do all kinds of rehabbing, shall we say, and I took that out to homes, and my husband and I would buy multiple small units. We'd have to qualify for the loan and fix them up and hold them. So we never flipped. But when I got in the commercial world, I actually did a 1031 exchange out of some of our income properties, and we exchanged into commercial. And once I got into commercial, I went, oh my God, I didn't realize you could put in a little bit of money and have a partnership holding where you're getting cash flow like you would get, even better than you would get on a single family. And when I really went back and looked at it, a single family resident is a high risk, because if it's empty, you got to reach in your pocket to pay all those expenses. Where if you're in something, let's say a 20-unit industrial park, you've got 5-year leases. The tenant is responsible for the building, everything in it. If there's a triple net lease, they're also responsible for the taxes, the insurance, the upkeep of the parking lot, the stripes. And they get to deduct all of that and depreciate all of that, and they get to write it off. But I'm like, oh my God, I could put a couple $100,000 into something and I'm going to get my 10% return. Wow, 10% on 100,000, that's 10,000 a year. How many do I need to do to get whatever's going to cover my, what we call the nut, my expenses for the year? So just say $1 million, right? Then I get 120,000. If I did 10 deals with 100,000 each, now I've just overloaded my nest. Well, I just made it bigger. That's all I did. Right now I can put more eggs in it. So that's what I do. I invest in a lot of different things, but what we do is when the deals come to us, right? The different syndicators. So we work in all assets of commercial real estate. So it could be industrial park, it could be multifamily apartments, self-storage, mobile home parks. If it qualifies for a commercial loan, we work with it. And so the syndicator, that's the person that goes in and figures out how to put this deal together and give that 10% or better return, comes to us and says, would you help us raise the capital we need, the equity part, so we can close? We've got a loan in place, but we need $10 million, let's say, or 3 million or whatever it is. We work in the smaller deals, and we look at the deal and vet it out and make sure that it's their experience, run background checks. We look to see what their income and expenses are today with what the seller gave them. And then we look at their pro forma, which we call the wish list. And then we look to see, is that realistic? Well, I've been investing for 40 years. I can tell if that's realistic. And if somebody comes in and says, oh, we're going to raise the rents $500. And I'm like, you can't do that. You'll have an empty building. You're out. Then when you really sit down and they go, well, we're not going to do it now. We're going to do it over a period of years. We're just going to raise 5% at a time. I'm like, well, that's not what your pro forma shows. So again, you're out. You've got to give us what's really going to happen. So you're not given an 8 or 9% return. You're given a 4% return. Well, yeah, we'll build up to it. Well, you're out. Don't tell me one thing and not perform. So like that. My money's going in. Really, if it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for you. And that's how we vet all our deals out. So, and I just got a whole bunch of deals. So I've got to get to vetting them out. A lot of construction right now.
Now for you on the you're out token, is that more because they're just not offering enough of a percent? Like, do you have a minimum threshold, or is that strictly because they misrepresented the deal and it was like, no, you're absolutely out?
Both. If they're only offering 4 or 5%, they're not putting the deal together properly. So there's that. And it means probably they're too new when we run the background check, or if they misrepresent. And I've had people just said pro formas and no income and expenses. And I'll say, hey, I need to see your income and expenses and your rent roll. And they don't send it. Well, what are they hiding? They're out. We're not working with people that don't give us what we ask for. And we have people, we had this really amazing company when we said all the things we needed, and man, they had it right back to us, like within a day or two. So we love working with people like that. And sometimes now they're starting to bring better returns, but we haven't worked with them for several years because they thought 4% was a good return. And we're like, well, we don't have anybody that'll invest with you at 4%. Like that. So now they're bringing in better returns, and we're re-looking at working with them.
Got it. And what I really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we've been watching them over the last 5 or 6 years. They've done really well. They've brought in people that are happy to have 4 or 5% returns. And so they've got this really big nest, you would say. I think they've now closed on 7 or 8 deals over the last 4 or 5 years. And wow. So they've got good experience, and they know a lot of doctors because they are doctors.
There's something to be said for not looking at return in a vacuum, because I operate in several different markets, which I know you do as well. And if we just randomly to talk cap rate, in New York City, an investor might happily take a 3.5% cap versus somewhere 2.5 hours outside of the city where the minimum acceptable cap is going to be 8 to 10%.
Yeah, New York City. Really? They could get 3 in New York City? Last I looked, it was 2.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If you can get 3, you'd be thrilled.
Oh, yeah. And we know people that do that. They go in and they buy the big, huge buildings, and they're very happy to have a 2% return. Because I guess when you've got 1,000 or 1,500 doors and you look at 2%, that could be okay. But you've got to have the full 2% net, right? Net after debt. Like, that's the cash flow. And most people don't actually realize that the cash flow is based on the income less the expenses less the debt, and before taxes. That's what cash flow is, because now the individual, get to pay taxes on your K1. So you get a K1 and it tells you, usually there's depreciation and it offsets the income. So there's a lot of details. People think it's really simple to do real estate, but we like partnerships. Partnerships are the best. I don't have to do anything but give them my money and they do all the work, all of it. And they deal with all the problems. Thank goodness for that. And I know what they are because I did this for so many years. I'm at a point where I just don't want to do that anymore. Let somebody else do it. And I wouldn't have the time to talk with you and see how you wanted to grow your nest egg if I was out there looking for more deals. So we still connect everybody that we possibly can.
I love that. And I feel like we met at a very fortuitous time, because in my book, I cover the dream team of real estate, which is, most people think it's a solo sport and they don't realize all of the different professions that you really should at some point have on your team. Between, you hit on taxes, you need a CPA. If you're out there in the trenches, contractors, inspectors, you name it, you want to have the professional resources. And I had totally overlooked private equity and real estate investment groups until we started talking. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't put the book out like this.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh,
So,
yeah. And they call it a waterfall. So when you're talking to a lot of particularly developers, because they build, but even like what are now called family offices or companies that are in the real estate world, they don't just have a CPA, they have project managers or a wealth manager that's somebody out looking for and reviewing all their deals. And they're usually a team. They're not just one person. Then you have to have your CPA. And yes, you have to have you need your support. You do need your support. It's a big deal to have the right people in places. And and a lot of them have foundations, and it's not just about buying real estate and growing it and making it work. It's also about how are you giving back to your community? What difference are you making? And thank goodness there are people that have money, because the more money you have, the more you could do for your community. And there's people out there that think money's a bad thing, but when you're using it right, like that, it makes a difference what you could do.
Money is a tool just like everything else, right? You can do good things with a car, you can do bad things with a car.
Yeah, so I'd like to bring up another subject on that tool. It's about parents and children. And I get phone calls from people and they're like, my kids don't understand. I'm trying to explain to them about this real estate and money. And I'm like, well, how old are they? 50? I'm like, excuse me? You're starting to talk to your kids when they're 50? They're married with their own kids. So my thing about teaching children about money, you have to start when they're super, super young. And my story on this is they tell you, the parent, when they want that money conversation. Understand, they don't understand there's anything about money. They don't know what money is. They don't know nothing, zero. All they know is when they go to the grocery store with mom, she puts them in a basket, or dad, and they pull stuff off the shelves, right? And they put it in a basket, and then they go through this line where they put it into a bag and they go to the car. They didn't understand about the money exchange there, right? So when they say to mom or dad, whoever's pushing the cart, I want that, that is when they're saying, I'm ready for a money conversation. And the parent actually could say, oh, instead of saying, no, you can't have that, or I don't have the money, right? Start off with a negativity around money, the tool, talk about how the tool works, say, wow, you could have that, but you have to earn the money to buy that. And they're like, well, what's that? They're 2, there's 3. People think, oh, that's too young. No, it's not. I bet you take them to church. What do you think they're getting out of that? Aren't you inundating them then with the rules and regulations of somebody that made some things up? Right, of course you are. Same around money. Teach them when they're young. So here's what happens. I don't know, we'll say a toy and it's $5.99, $6 plus tax. So we say, oh, okay, great. Let's have that conversation. Let's go home when we're unpacking the groceries. Let's have that conversation when your other parent will be there. and you say, okay, let's think of some ways you can make some money. So here's what happens. The kid earns the money, they keep the room neat, whatever. And now they got their $6. Guess what? They don't want that anymore. Why don't they want that anymore, Matt?
Because of how much work they just had to put in to earn that $6.
Exactly. Exactly. Now they totally understand money. They don't understand everything about it, obviously, but they understand what it takes to make money. And they're not even 5 years old. Now you start them with the jars, right? 4 jars: savings, spending, investing, and community donations, whatever, however you want to look at that. Now they have 4 jars, and you figure you could give them an allowance for that or whatever it is. And now you're teaching them the next step, right? The giving back, and the money that's for investment never gets spent on anything. It's not spending, it's investing. Your savings is like to fix the car, or, the rainy day thing.
To
right?
buy that toy or whatever it is that you're really looking
Well,
to treat
but that's
yourself
spending if you're going to spend. So
to.
spending money and savings money are 2 different things, right? If you want something, he wants that car, spending. But if there's something that needs to be repaired, which most kids don't have, but adults do, right? The car breaks down, the windshield wipers need to be replaced. You take that out of your savings.
Absolutely. And all that entire philosophy really turns the money doesn't grow on trees conversation on
That's
its
right.
head, because now they're understanding. You say that to a kid and they're like, of course, I'm not stupid. I know it doesn't grow on the tree, but they're not making the connection of how is it earned? What do I have to do to get that money besides ask for it and you say yes or no?
Right. And now when they go into the grocery store, they understand, oh, mom's using a credit card, or I write check, or whatever they're doing. Right now they understand there's this transaction that's happening. And it makes a huge difference. And just think of how easy it is now. And all you did was explain if you want to buy that toy.
Yeah. And that's something that they carry with them for the rest of their lives, and an educated consumer in anything.
Yep, that's so true. My ex hairdresser, she was my hairdresser for 40 years. She brought her son up this way. And he was like 6 or 7 when he started playing with his dad on the stock market.
Oh,
So
wow.
by the time he was 18, he had the money to go to college. How's that? We're not stock market people. We don't like the stock market, but people do. They do really well, but they paid attention every single day.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, everyone's mind operates differently. I got a finance degree, thought I would really enjoy trading. I don't. There's just it's way too mundane. It's way too much paying attention to detail. It's way too much timing. Whereas real estate, I mean, yeah, can you buy high? Can you buy low? But for the most part, timing doesn't play as huge a part as finding the right deal.
Oh, it's always about finding the right deal and putting it together. So it's time, price, location. The timing, like we're going into good timing now. The market's on its way down. If you're a buyer, it's good timing now. The price, well, interest rates went up. Prices have to drop to make it affordable. Plus, you want to work off market. You want to knock on doors. You want to meet people. That's how you put your deals together. And then location. So every town has all kinds of different A, B, C, D, E, F, G, when you're in LA or New York, right? So you need to look at all of that. We have a lot of investors and sponsors that really like the B class, because it's the hardworking person out there every day doing their thing, paying their bills on time, unfortunately struggling because they haven't had a conversation with us yet. Right. So like that.
I'm glad you just said that, because in the couple minutes that we have left, I would love for you to just explain a little bit more about what it is that you do and the benefits for people who have some money set aside for investing to work with you. Beyond just you don't have to be a landlord, you don't have to deal with the contractors. Well, what are the other benefits of doing a passive investing strategy?
Well, let's say you have a job that you love and you want to go to it every day. You're a nurse, or I don't know, you're a manager of a industrial. You can invest your old 401k or your savings or your retirement into a passive position, which means you put your money in and you're a partner in the property. So you're actually an owner of the property, and they're usually done through what's called LLCs, limited liability corporations. And you're there, and you get, if it's cash flow, you get your cash flow quarterly. And when they sell the property, you get the profit, whatever your share is. So let's say you put $100,000 in, and in 10 years they sell it, and you just did more than double your money. If you're getting a 10%, it takes about 7 years to double, like that. So you look at that. They might refinance it, give you your money back, and now you can invest it in another deal, opportunity, we like to call them. So you don't have to do anything but earn your money and make it work for you. And how you get a hold of us is we're the Nest Egg Builder, and we have a show where we educate people every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And it's a Q&A, so you can come listen and maybe have something you want to talk about. We'd love to have you come talk to us about that. And you can just make an appointment with us. Just go to our website, thenesteggbuilder.com, and set an appointment like that.
I highly recommend doing that. Again, I fancy myself as someone with a tremendous wealth of knowledge. I mean, I just wrote a 200-page book on real estate, and I've been learning from Peggy over the last month or so. So I highly advise checking it out. Too many people use the word passive income in real estate, and they're not talking about passive income. There's nothing passive about being a landlord. There's nothing passive about, a lot of the things people say is passive, but when you're a member of one of these memberships or these partnerships, you're not getting tenant phone calls in the middle of the night saying their faucet's broken. You're not getting the contractor calling saying he couldn't make it to the job site, and you're not going to pass your inspection, and you're going to be late to closing. You truly are just passively investing your money.
Truly, yes. And passive investing is actually an IRS term. It's not, right? So as a passive investor working with us, you're not out there doing exactly what Matt just said. You are going to work, having a good time on your vacations, and collecting checks. And you don't have to go to the bank anymore. Most of them automatically put it in your checking account.
That's incredible. So please, everybody, head over to thenesteggbuilder.com. Tune in on Tuesdays at 2 Pacific to Peggy's show. I can't stress enough how much I've learned and how much I value these conversations for me as a professional and in my personal life. You have just spent this time listening to Matt Harms on the Getting Real podcast with Peggy Beauregard from the Nest Egg Builder. Peggy, thank you once again so much for being here. I truly appreciate it.
It's been so much fun. Thank you for this invitation.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm sure we'll be doing this again soon, because I don't think we can ever cover it all. And I'm not even going to count how many conversations, but you will be back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.